Here we will be looking at the Huns, the faction that has given Attila, the game Attila, its name, so you would expect them to have a strong and big roster. The roster is at least big. So, we're starting with the general's options. We have the Steppe Chieftain, a very good cavalry unit against enemy cavalry. One of the best available to the Huns. It's too bad they don't have the Steppe Chieftain-like melee cavalry available, but he is a very good cavalry general. He has not a huge amount of melee attack or damage. He has a good bonus against large. He has one precursor javelin with a 15 bonus against large, so a decent enough melee cavalry unit. Then we have the Steppe Warlord. He also has, he's a step up from the Steppe Chieftain. Another good unit. He is very expensive though. He will lose to units like Tagmata Cavalry, but then again, so do all cavalry units. He has 2 javelins with a 15 bonus against large, and just overall decent stats. Not the highest health for its price, but a very decent unit. Then the Hunnic Warlord, another decent cavalry unit, but its price is super prohibitive. It has 36 ammunition and good melee capabilities, so this is a unit that scares enemy units. It does not have Parthian shots. It has rapid advance, so it can get out of sticky situations, and precision shot. But the lack of Parthian shots is something that is devastating to enemy skirmish units, because enemy skirmish cavalry in particular. Because if you lack Parthian shot, that means that all a cavalry unit has to do in order to catch you is to keep moving, keep following. Because when units follow and they don't get fired upon, it's going to be a very bad time for the unit that gets chased and potentially attacked in the rear. Now we get to the spear units of the Huns. We have Steppe Levy, Steppe Spears, and Hunnic Spears. The Steppe Levy, not impressive stats offensively, but they actually have quite a bit of armor for their price. Their melee defense is very low, but they also have an excellent chance of blocking enemy missiles. And what an excellent chance of blocking enemy missiles looks like is a 70% missile block chance. So that is significant. They also have expert charge defense, and the Huns, in my opinion, really need these guys for helping out in cavalry fights. The Steppe Spearmen are a step up from the Steppe Levy, but they only have an average missile block chance, so missile block chance of 40, 30 reduction from these guys. So I'm kind of conflicted. The thing the Steppe Spearmen have going for them is that they do have the shield screen, and the shield screen increases their missile block to 75%, increases their mass and attack against cavalry. So a bit cheaper, the Steppe Levy, a bit more sturdy to missiles, but missiles aren't a huge threat anyway. Not a whole lot of people will waste their ammunition on units like these, so Steppe Spearmen are a decent choice. A step up from the Steppe Spearmen, and yes, that was an intentional pun, we have the Hunnic Spears. The Hunnic Spears get a bit more armor, but overall they are not a significant improvement. The Steppe Spearmen have better melee defense, and they have the same abilities. So Hunnic Spears, a decent enough unit. They have a missile block chance of 70, so they will sort of be the compromise unit between these two guys here, where you pay a bit more but you get both the shield screen and the excellent chance to block enemy missiles. Then the Scary Warriors, the best spears of the Huns. They have precursors, the only Hunnic spears that have precursors. They also, just overall solid stats, they are very good against enemy cavalry. Now in terms of melee infantry, we have the Steppe Tribes people, and their offensive stats are actually pretty damn good for their price. They have 43 melee attack, 40 weapon damage, 29 charge bonus, all good stuff. The problem is, of course, their very low health. A step up from the steppe tribes people, we have the Hunnic dismounted warband, and this is also a decent unit. It's not a real killer, but it can be decent in a rear charging flanking role. And the interesting thing about it is that it actually has a scare effect and is immune to fear, and has rapid advance. So that could potentially help it to get in some rear charges, and rear charges plus fear is devastating. Now the Bosforan warriors have quite a lot of armor, quite a lot of health. Their melee attack isn't great, their charge bonus isn't great, they're kind of like Roman infantry in that. They have a decent amount of morale, and they have 2 precursor javelins with a 15 bonus against large. Then we have the Bosforan infantry. They have some of the best armor in the game. Again, not too impressive in terms of melee, in terms of offensive capabilities, but a very, very tanky unit. But important to note though, these units lack shield screen or shield wall. They do have encourage and steady, which is going to potentially increase their missile block chance, and their they can encourage nearby allies as well. Then we have the UR warriors. Cause fear, immune to fear, rapid advance, frenzy, and their stats are absolutely insane offensively. 37 charge, 50 melee damage, 62 melee attack. It's almost like they are wielding one-handed axes. They have 10 armor penetrating, but what you don't see is that these guys also come with a 20 bonus against infantry. So that means that each time they hit an infantry unit, they will do a guaranteed 30 damage, almost twice the amount that a single-handed axe does. So these guys are very close to being overpowered. They can be dealt with by cavalry, of course. And missiles, they are not too good against missiles. Then we have the chosen URs. Again, a step up from the UR warriors. You don't get too much for those additional funds that you spend in terms of killing power. You get a whole lot of morale. You get the discipline trait. But they are the price increase does not reflect the melee capabilities of the chosen UR warriors. UR warriors are, in my opinion, a much superior choice. Steppe warriors, a decent axe unit with good armor, good melee defense for being a single-handed axe unit, but you do want to bring UR warriors instead of the steppe warriors. They are better in every single way. We have steppe bows. Pretty funny stats on these guys, but they are cheap missile infantry. Useful for all the things that missile infantry is useful for. Steppe shield archers are interesting because they have shields with a 25% missile block chance. On the expensive side, not a whole lot of ammo on these guys, but they are nice for being an archer unit against enemy archers and enemy skirmishers because of the shields. Then we have the UR archers, and the UR archers have 50 missile damage compared to the 45 missile damage of these guys. They have 18 ammunition, they scare, interestingly enough. They also have rapid advance and precision shots, so these guys are a bit more tanky against enemy missiles, but in straight up damage potential, the UR archers take it. Now we get to melee cavalry, and the Hunnic melee cavalry, you'll see right away that they are very light, very light, very light, very light, very light, medium. You only get to medium with the devil cavalry, and then with the knockers. So the main problem for the Hunnic melee cavalry is that they are very light or light. That means they will get wrecked by medium heavy infantry units with cavalry units with inferior stats. So although the stats aside from armor is pretty good on all of these units, the health is very low. They are fast, they are fragile, and it's very difficult to use them effectively. They also have, most of them have only brought 2 precursor missiles or javelins, which is problematic. Units like these Hunnic horsemen could start to get useful if they had a full quiver of arrows, so they could spend their arrows and then charge in. Now another issue is that when we get to the elite units, the noble Akatsiri raiders, they also are very light, and although the Hunnic Devil Cavalry and the Nokkors have very nice stats in terms of melee attack and damage, they're only medium. They have a distinct lack of health compared to other cavalry units in their price range. They have a lack of mass, and they don't have a good attack against enemy cavalry. So in terms of melee cavalry should be good against enemy shock cavalry and enemy cavalry, but the Hunnic cavalry just isn't, for the reasons just mentioned. And the same holds true for their shock cavalry. They have very cheap steppe lancers, light, then they have medium steppe cataphracts, Hunnic lancers, elite Hunnic lancers, first wave lancers, and noble steppe cataphracts. Now, although these units have a great charge bonus, they do suffer. Only the steppe noble cataphracts at 875 have the status of being heavy. So the noble steppe cataphracts are good units, but their supporting cost, the melee cavalry, is just so underwhelming that it's difficult to make use of these units and difficult to use them to great effect. Now, steppe mounted bows, a worthless unit. For just a bit more, you get the Hunnic mounted bows, and the Hunnic mounted bows have more missile damage, but more importantly, they do have Parthian shot. So Hunnic mounted bows are one of the few skirmish cavalry units in the game that can just keep running, keep kiting, and still do damage to enemy cavalry. So very useful with the Hunnic mounted bows. And also important to note is that they actually have 40 melee damage, so when they are out of ammunition, they can get in and do some damage against enemy infantry formations in the rear. Steppe horse archers, very expensive, high amount of ammunition, not Parthian shots available. So, I mean, all of these units that don't have the Hunnic horse archers, they do have Parthian shots. But I really question, I mean, making these units cost effective takes a lot of time. They require a lot of micromanagement. The same thing with the Hunnic ambushers. Sure, they can do some nice things with guerrilla deployment and sniping and all of that, but it's just very difficult to make a unit, a light bow cavalry unit with 22 melee attack, 32 weapon damage, 174 health, 20 armor, and only 10 ammo to really work. Same thing holds true for the noble horse archers. Very expensive, no Parthian shot, difficult to make them work. The Uniguard is a bit, it's in the same boat. Light mass, low health, low amount of missiles. It has Parthian shot, but it will go through those arrows really quickly. The Hunnic Devil Archers have a massive amount of ammunition, but they are super expensive. Medium bow cav with decent melee stats, so they are some of the better units in the Hun roster, but they are very expensive. The same with the Avar Horde, bit comparable to the Hunnic Devil Archers, but in my opinion the Hunnic Devil Archers are a bit better due to more health, more armor, better melee stats, and the Avar Horde is very quick, it's very fast, and it also has the rapid advance, but it does not have precision shots. So rapid advance and barrage, I mean, together with Parthian shot could be a nice set of abilities, but at the price that the Hun units come with, they are not going to do well. So the main problems, and I made a separate video about this, so it might be known to some of you, the main problems of the Hunnic cavalry lies in their low amount of precursors, their low mass, their low health, and their very prohibitive price. So while they have an impressive cavalry roster in terms of sheer diversity, basically all of those cavalry units suffer from the same basic weakness, which makes them underperform. Now, ironically, the Huns have the best sword infantry in the game. They have a very strong melee lineup, starting with the Bosphorn warriors and ending with the awesome chosen Uars. They also have some decent spear options, but in terms of cavalry, Again, ironically, it's going to be very, very hard to gain a cavalry advantage as the Huns in this game. And that is quite funny. Now, it is true that the Hun preferred mode of warfare was not using cavalry as heavy medieval shock cavalry type knight types of horses and men with armor. It was mainly in the opening stages of the battle, skirmishing, feinting attacks, demoralizing the enemy with barrages of missile fire. So lacking Parthian shot on many of these horse archers makes that for a less than viable strategy. And also, if their melee cavalry was dual purpose cavalry, let's say they had 10, 15, 20 ammo, it would be very interesting to see what you could do with the Huns if you were able to weaken the enemy and then charge in, which would be a very Hunnic way to fight. But the way it works now, because the turn speed of horse archers is so slow, when you run out, turn around and fire, it's in many cases just too late, and you're going to get your horse archers caught. So that is the Hunnic problem. They are not great at what they should be great at, mainly because of design decisions and design flaws. But let's have a look at the units. There are some very cool looking units in the roster. So, here we have the units with guerrilla deployment. The Uniguard, the Hunnic ambushers. Then we have the, let's see here, we have the steppe-mounted brigands and the noble Akatsiri raiders. The steppe raiders. Behind those we have the Uar archers. Steppe shield archers. Infantry, we have the steppe levy. Pretty cool looking shields on these guys. The Bosforan warriors. The Bosforan infantry. The Uar warriors. Awesome looking units. Here we have their deadly Khanda weapon. It's almost like, if you look at the edge, look at the edge of the Khanda, it tapers, or it expands into a weapon that looks very devastating as a chopping weapon. Almost like a cleaver. Well, it is essentially a cleaver. Then we have the steppe warriors. Cool looking unit. Hunnic mounted warband. Hunnic horse. Hunnic horse. Steppe cataphracts. There are so many cool looking units here that could be very effective as hybrid units, but they are just too bad at their secondary purpose, and indeed too bad at their primary purpose to be effective. Noble horse archers. Steppe horse archers. Here we have the steppe spears, the Hunnic spears, the Skiri warriors. Hunnic devil archers, awesome looking units. Hunnic horse archers. Steppe mounted tribes people. Hunnic devil cavalry. Steppe lancers. And Hunnic lancers. So if you're going to hope to prevail using the Huns, you really need to ensure that you can gain a cavalry advantage, and that is not easy as the Huns. You need to use combined arms, you need to support your cavalry fights with steppe levy, you need to do as much damage as you can with precursors before charging in, because you will lose. But against an opponent that just decides to rush the hell out of you, the Huns are probably going to lose. They can do amazing things infantry wise with a core of just Uar warriors. They can destroy enemy infantry lines very quickly, more quickly than any other sword infantry, aside from the chosen Uars. But the chosen Uars are a bit too expensive. So there we have the Huns. Very distinct weaknesses in multiplayer displayed by the Huns, and their main strengths are that they have Uar warriors, to be completely honest. so they are going to be outmatched in many important categories of the game. So it can be fun to play with the Huns. Maybe we should have a look at a Hunnic build that I've tried quite a lot and liked. And in quick battles and in multiplayer, you will meet a lot of weird builds, weird people, and I have come up against just armies that look like let's see here. In quick battles, and one of the reasons why I don't play many quick battles, I have come up against armies that look like this. And this is no joke. And then a few step cataphracts thrown in for good measure. I have come up against armies like this, and I've never lost against an army like this. But if we're going to be looking at a build that could potentially be a build that I've tried a bit and that can work against different factions, I'd be wanting some Hunnic spears to support cavalry fights, a main line of UR warriors. Let's see here, a few step lancers for dealing with enemy cavalry, and having a lot of melee cavalry as the Huns is something I don't like too much, because they are so weak, they are so light, and they are so weak. So 4 Hunnic mounted bows. Now you can bring a few step lancers, or if you want a bit more holding power from your cavalry, you can bring some additional melee troops. But it's not it's not easy to get good cost-effective melee cavalry from the Huns. It might just be better to bring some well, it's almost certainly better to just bring some step cataphracts instead. Maybe if you want some step bows, you can do that. 6 URs might be a bit overkill, so if you want more cavalry, you can have something like 3 step cataphracts and a few step archers. You can give some chevrons to a few units. But as the Huns, the main killing power against infantry is ironically going to come from their own infantry. They are far more reliable infantry killers than any of the Hunnic cavalry units. Step cataphracts are nice, step lancers are nice, but they will lose cavalry fights to many units in the game. So the hope you have for the Huns is to weaken and tire out the enemy cavalry with your Hunnic mounted bows. Try to get your UR warriors unmolested into the enemy infantry, and basically try to delay the cav engagement for as long as possible, so you're able to do damage to the cavalry, get your spears in, do damage with the Hunnic mounted bows. So the Huns, one of the most difficult factions to use effectively, because they will be outmatched in terms of cavalry. If you go with expensive Hunnic cavalry, you're going to be in a situation where enemy cavalry units are going to be able to defeat your cavalry for a much lesser cost, and as a consequence the enemy army is going to be bigger in other areas. So that's it for the Huns. Can be fun, but also super difficult to use, and I'd rate them as one of the bottom factions in the game at the moment due to their lack of cost-effective cavalry options. Very ironic. Strength and honor.